All right, man. It looks like Shedeur Sanders just got slammed once again. The Cleveland Browns quarterback room is just being disrespected on every single front. It appears that there's no faith and no belief in Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson, and we have to get into it. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, and hype the video. That'd be greatly appreciated. Let's get right in.
He's the quarterback everyone said would take over Cleveland. And right now, some people inside that building aren't so sure anymore. Before the pads even went on, before a single snap was taken in real training camp battle, the noise had already started. And it wasn't good. Because a new report just dropped, and it didn't paint a pretty picture for the Cleveland Browns quarterback room. Not for Shedeur Sanders, not for Deshaun Watson, not for anybody wearing that helmet this season. Sports Illustrated came out and said it plainly. The Browns have the worst quarterback situation in the entire NFL. Not one of the worst, the worst. Out of 32 teams, they ranked dead last. And when a national outlet says that about a team with 2 former Pro Bowl passers on the roster, you have to stop and ask, how did it get here? Because on paper, this shouldn't be true. You've got a former first overall pick in Deshaun Watson. You've got a kid in Shedeur Sanders who broke records at Colorado, who walked into the league with more hype and more hate than almost any rookie in recent memory. 2 former Pro Bowlers, 2 storylines the entire country is watching. And somehow, analysts are ranking this room below the Jets, below the Cardinals, below the Dolphins, below a Falcons team still trying to figure out if Tua can stay healthy for a full season. Let that sink in for a second. The report specifically called out that Cleveland finding a viable starter might be the single greatest challenge Todd Monken has faced at any level of his coaching career. Not a tough challenge, the greatest one. For a coach who's worked with elite quarterbacks throughout his career, that's not just criticism, that's a warning shot. And for Shedeur Sanders, this hits different. Because this isn't the kind of doubt he's used to hearing about his arm talent or his decision-making. This is doubt about the entire situation around him. The kind of doubt that says, it doesn't matter how good you are, the room itself is broken.
Courtesy of Sports Illustrated, where it says Cleveland Browns named worst quarterback situation in the NFL. Finding a viable starter in Cleveland is already Todd Monken's greatest challenge ever at the NFL level. This is insane. Here it says the Cleveland Browns are the perfect example how even in the NFL, individual accolades can be severely misleading. Case in point, the Browns are currently in the midst of a quarterback battle for the starting job between.
So how does a young quarterback carry that? How do you walk into a stadium every single day knowing the national conversation isn't can Shedeur win the job? It's can anybody on this roster be trusted to win games at all? That's the storm Shedeur Sanders is standing in right now, before camp even really begins. If you're new here, this is where we break down the real stories behind the headlines. Make sure you're subscribed, because this Browns quarterback battle is about to get a lot more emotional before it gets any clearer. Now, here's where it gets complicated, because inside Cleveland media circles, there's a real split happening, and it's not the split you'd expect. Local radio voices have been talking about just how unpredictable this quarterback competition actually is. One host admitted that if you ask 10 different people who's currently in the lead, you might get 5 different answers. Some say Deshaun, some say Shedeur, and a lot of people, including people close to the building, genuinely don't know yet. Think about that for a second. We're talking about an NFL quarterback competition, one of the most scrutinized jobs in professional sports, and even insiders are shrugging their shoulders. One radio personality put it simply, there's going to be a Shedeur camp, there's going to be a Deshaun camp, and there's going to be a much bigger group in the middle, just hoping Todd Monken picks whoever gives this team the best chance to football games. That's not a united locker room narrative. That's a fan base and a media market pulling in 3 different directions at once. And that's exactly the kind of pressure that can make or break a young quarterback in his second year. Chapter 2.
Between 2 Pro Bowl passers, nonetheless, it's quite possible no team is in worse shape at the most important position in all of sports than Cleveland. So you already see they have no respect for Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson. Here it says, at least that's what a recent story published by CBS Sports is pitching, naming the Browns the worst with the worst quarterback situation in all of the NFL. According to this piece, Cleveland is worse off than the New York Jets. They got
Because here's the thing about Shedeur Sanders. He didn't come into this league quietly. He came in with cameras on him from the moment he was a teenager. He came in with a famous last name, a Hall of Fame father, and an entire country either rooting for him to fail or begging for him to prove everybody wrong. There was no soft landing spot for him, no quiet development year in the shadows. Every single throw has been dissected since day one. So when a report says the room around him is the worst in football, it's not just an insult to the roster. It's another brick added to a wall of scrutiny that's been building since before he ever put on a Browns uniform. But here's where the story shifts, because while the outside noise says one thing, some voices close to the team are saying something very different. Tyvis Powell, a name that carries real weight in Cleveland's football ecosystem, came out and spoke about why Shedeur actually fits the Browns' long-term plan. Not just this season, not just this camp, the plan going forward. And that matters, because it reframes the entire conversation. This isn't just about who wins a summer competition. This is about who Cleveland believes in when they look 5 years down the road. And according to people like Powell, that answer already has a name attached to it. That's the tension right now. On one side, national media saying this quarterback room is the league's biggest question mark. On the other side, people inside the organization pointing at Shedeur Sanders as the long-term answer. Two completely different stories, both happening at the exact same time. Now let's talk about the business side of this, because it explains a lot about why this competition even exists in the first place.
I mean, they absolutely destroyed the Browns quarterback room. Now, on Afternoon Drive on the Fan, they spoke about the interesting and how entertaining this quarterback battle will be throughout camp. Let's get into it.
I feel like the people right now who are saying, why are you talking about Deshaun and Shedeur, or who are frustrated or are pro one way or the other, I think we are going to end up having a pretty interesting and entertaining quarterback battle.
I hope so. I hope it's not just, it's...
Deshaun Watson signed one of the biggest contracts in NFL history, $230 million guaranteed. The Browns also gave up a mountain of draft capital to bring him to Cleveland. That's the kind of investment that doesn't just get shut down quietly. Analysts have pointed out that this situation mirrors what happened in Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson. No franchise wants to watch a former high pick walk out the door and succeed somewhere else. It creates a nightmare scenario. So there's a real belief that the Browns want one final, honest look at Watson before making any long-term decisions. But here's the uncomfortable question that follows that logic. If that reasoning applies to Watson, why wouldn't it apply just as much to Shedeur? Some insiders have pushed back on that exact point. The difference, they argue, is timeline. If Watson doesn't perform this camp, this might be his last real shot in Cleveland. If Shedeur doesn't win the job immediately, he still has an entire season, and likely more, to develop into who the Browns believe he can become. That's the separator. One quarterback is fighting for his final chapter. The other is still writing his origin story. And that's exactly why so many people around the league think this battle, whoever wins it early, may not stay settled for long. One insider raised a scenario that should make every Browns fan a little uneasy. What if Cleveland sees flashes from Watson early, hands him the job, gives him 6 weeks, and then turns to Shedeur midseason anyway? That kind of quarterback carousel sounds appealing to nobody. Analysts have flat out said, if you're walking into a season already planning to rotate quarterbacks, you've probably already lost before it started. So where does that leave Shedeur mentally? Imagine being a young player who watched every single one of your college snaps get replayed 1,000 times online, who has heard doubt from every angle since your very first press conference, and now you're being told the room around you might be the worst situation in professional football. How do you not let that?
It's a lot of this discussion.
So while we're talking about the Browns and their quarterback decision and what they'll make, James Palmer was on his Bleacher Report spot there and talked about one reason the Browns could be motivated to play Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson seems to be the leader in the clubhouse, from my understanding. Why would they do that with the contract kind of expiring? It's essentially this. It's very similar to the Colts with Anthony Richardson. You hate to see a guy picked near the top of the draft with a ton of talent go play well in another building. So they want to get one.
But here's what makes Shedeur different. Every person who studied his mindset says the same thing. Pressure doesn't seem to shrink him, it seems to sharpen him. He's never been the quarterback who ran from expectations. If anything, he's built his entire career on absorbing them and using them as fuel. The doubt from analysts, the ranking that says his quarterback room is the league's worst, the constant back-and-forth debate on sports radio about who's really leading this competition, none of it changes what he's been building towards since Colorado. A belief, quiet but unshakable, that he belongs at this level, regardless of what situation surrounds him. And that's why so many people close to the Browns organization, people like Tyvis Powell, keep pointing back to the same idea. This isn't about who wins camp in July. This is about who Cleveland trusts with their future. Because championship windows in this league don't open because of one summer. They open because a franchise finally commits to a direction and stops living in fear of what might happen if they choose wrong. So as veterans report to camp, as those pads finally go on, as this quarterback competition stops being theoretical and starts being real, the entire football world will be watching Shedeur Sanders, not just to see if he wins the job, but to see how he responds when the loudest voices in the sport are telling him the deck is stacked against him. Because if there's one thing his story has already proven, doubt has never been his enemy. It's been his motivation. And if Cleveland's long-term plan really does run through Shedeur Sanders, this rocky, chaotic, uncertain summer might end up being remembered as exactly where it all started to turn.